just tell us a little bit about your relationship to the jazz band, and just could you talk about how does the band in this workshop affect Pioneer Valley?
It's a tall order. Well, my part of the band is I'm the bass player. And originally this was started with Dave Shapiro as the bassist, but I only think he was able to do a few of them, and he got sick, and when he left, I took over his spot. Dave passed away later that year. So my relationship is being the bass player, and then to some degree, I influence what guests we hire and maybe the selection of tunes and stuff. As to how we affect the whole Pioneer Valley, well, I think what was created, first of all, when it was at Green Street, I looked at it as a house party. It became a house party when people would come over, and it was you had those stairs. I don't know if you were ever at Green Street, but those stairs were, it's a small place. And the bar was on the lower level, and then there's these stairs up to the higher level where the rest of the restaurant was. But, everybody was always congregating around the front where these stairs were, and it was always too busy, and, it was always a waitress or a waiter trying to get their way through the crowd. But it had a house party feel, because that building was a house, and it was a beautiful place. Green Street it was a French restaurant. The food was excellent. So when we came here, when Green Street closed, we came here. The Clarion wanted us, and so we came here. And I think with the added space, and this is a much more workable. Logistically, it's much more workable. So we have room for a lot more people to come. And what this has become is a meeting ground. It's like the Tuesday night jazz club. I don't know what else to call it. The Tuesday night. I mean, this is religion for a lot of people who come. It's certainly a religion for us. So, so that's, I don't know what else I can tell you, but I think we wouldn't exist if the people in the valley didn't come to it. I mean, this wouldn't happen if nobody showed up. So I think one of the things that has people show up is that we always bring in very interesting guests and very accomplished guests. I mean, in a couple of weeks we're going to have Houston Person here. We've had Karin Allison has been here, Giacomo Gates, Ralph Lalama, and his wife Nicole.
So you kind of mentioned that it's this club feeling. So could you speak a little bit about what does a night look like? People come in, they eat. What could you describe how the night flows for a jam? Like,
the structure is basically this. It's just the first hour is a concert with a guest artist, and then after that, it's an open jam session. So anybody who has an instrument or sings is welcome to sit in and play. If they're a good player, play 2-3 tunes, come in and out over the night as things happen. It's very free form. And then, we just play till 10:30. When 10:30, comes around, if it's still got a lot of life and a lot of people want to keep party, we'll maybe do an extra tune or two and then call it a night.
So, what would you say are some of the routine patterns or the rules of behavior and interaction that develop during the jam session? So, for example, I think it's quite common that everyone comes in and they eat or someone has a drink. What are some of the routines that you think develops at this in specific?
Well, since this thing is hosted at a restaurant, yeah, people plan on coming in and having dinner or with their friends. I mean, there are groups of people who know each other. There's a lot of musicians here who work here on the weekends. Barbara Ween, Jill Connolly are here, Carol Smith, Ed Mari, who was instrumental in getting us here, and Brenda. She's not a musician, but I think she books the place, and she's instrumental in bringing us. So, did I just stray off your question? I think I might have.
Continue, but I think you were getting at the vibe.
Well, the vibe is I still look at it as a house party. because people come and they have a good time. They're here to have a good time. I think what they really like, first they get to see good guest artists. You've got a good rhythm section. We all know how to play. We all know how to accompany these artists, and you have a party atmosphere after when the jam session starts. You know, people sitting in. And we have young players. One of the things that we're in business to do this for, if you can call us a business, is to provide a venue for young players to come and play in front of an audience and generally play with players that are better than they are, so that they, you know, it's the apprentice system in jazz is dead. We don't have it anymore, for the most part. So when people come in and sit in, you know, there's that oral tradition of passing down things. It's sort of oral. I guess you could spell it A-U-R-A-L. You know, it's oral, but it's very much that. So when somebody sits in and they play, you know, they may want to talk with somebody afterwards and, hey, what did you think? You know, how am I doing? And you know, and everybody the older cats who are been around for a while. I mean, we're trying to encourage the younger players. Places like this don't exist. I don't think you can find anything like this. I don't know. Somebody came from Albany and played here, and they said, we don't have anything like this. Not from Albany, from Boston. And they said, we don't have anything like this in Boston. Of course, New York City does. I mean, you know, and places in that area, because it's a large metropolitan area, and you've got a large talent pool of players to draw upon. Also, Boston has a large talent pool, but I don't know if they have anything like this. I think it's also Paul. Paul creates a very party-like atmosphere, you know, not by being silly, but by just, you know, everybody knows this. We all know everybody, so it's kind of a ritual in a way. Yeah.
I mean, you basically answered my third and fourth questions when we kind of just, what does this space mean to the community? So I guess the last question is, with the change from the Clarion, from the Green Street to the Clarion now, I heard there was a different feel. It was tighter. It was more kind of, I wouldn't say rambunctious, but it was loud. It seemed like, and the vibes kind of changed. How do you as a musician, what do you think about that change? Has it been tough?
Well, no, really, this is a better room for what we're doing because it's much bigger. The layout is much better. You have much better sight lines. I mean, you know, at Green Street, if you have to really have had, if you can put some pictures of Green Street in, there's plenty of pictures, you'll see what I'm saying. But I mean, the portion of the room where we played, I mean, that was the downstairs bar. It wasn't very wide. It was maybe only 12, 15 feet wide, maybe 30 feet deep, and bar took up a portion of it. We were in the bay window, and then those stairs that go up, they really weren't all that wide, and people would sit on the stairs, you know, they'd bring up, and Jim was a great host. I mean, we really were hosting a house party, and it felt like a house party because you had the stairs, I think, and it was an old wooden structure, you know, so you had the wooden floor. So here, you know, logistics-wise, this is much better. It's a much different acoustic. This is a much better acoustic. You have acoustic tile ceiling. You've got carpet on the floor, and in that room at Green Street, it was all bare walls, bare window behind us. Somehow we made it work, but this is different. We had to get a better public address system to drive this room because, and we also, if you know, all the other bands play at the far end of the room. We play in the middle because this is a show, and we have the best sight lines from where we are for us. And it also gives us better sound on stage. If you get too close to the wall in here, the sound gets kind of contained, and it's too much where you're playing. You want it to be where it can breathe.
Yeah, perfect. That was my last question. If there's anything that you think that we should know about the Jazz Workshop or about the community that you'd like to add, that would just be our last question.
Well, I mean, this is a unique phenomenon. I'm just glad to be part of it. I am thrilled to be part of it. This is my family. This has become a family to me. And without these people, I mean, like I said, we wouldn't exist. So I've gotten to know a lot of people I didn't know before. It's, you know, I live in Brattleboro, Vermont, but now I've been down here so long, I'm actually looking, I actually was accepted at the master's program over at UMass at Amherst, and I'm looking at doing that as a musician. So I've developed a lot more connections just being part of this. So that's been really good for me, even though I've lived in this area for 10 years. So
Nice. Well, thank you.
my